Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 9 of my After Effects tutorial series. Today I'm going to show you how to draw and animate 3D shapes as well as how to use shadows and light. Now I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so it's time to learn about 3D shapes, lights, and shadows. I'm going to go and create a new composition, and everything works the same on Mac and Windows. Anytime the key is different on the keyboard, I will tell you. Okay, so 1920, 1080, 30 frame rate, 30 seconds, looks good. Alright, so I want to make a star, three-dimensional star. So I got this star up here, but I want to make sure I have Bezier path unchecked. Otherwise, things will not be good. So let's do this. Make ourselves a star, and let's come up here and hold down Shift and shrink it down. Actually, I'm going to shrink it down a lot. Alright, that's pretty good. And I have my fill turned to nothing, and I have my stroke as 40 pixels. And let's come in here and change the color on this. Let's make it like a bluish type of color, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And that looks pretty good, so click on OK. I'm going to make this 3D, and I'm just going to come to this cube. Boom, now it's 3D. I am not using classic 3D. I'm going to click on this, and instead we are going to be using Cinema 4D. Whole bunch of additional options. Click on OK. And you're going to be able to come up here to the wrench, and it's going to allow you to decide how well the rendering is done. Of course, if it's extreme quality, it's going to take longer to render, and draft is going to be less. And also, we can come in here where we have this little lightning bolt, and we can also define different lower end resolutions. But I'm just going to keep it right there at final quality. Now what I want to do is I want to come in here and allow my star to cast shadows. And you can do that by going into Material Options. And I'm going to say Cast Shadows. I'm going to turn this to On. I am going to close this. I'm actually going to make it 3D by extruding it. So I went Geometry Options. I'm going to change my bevel style to Angular. That just means it's going to have sharp edges there. And I'm going to take my extrusion depth up to 70 just by dragging this. And you can't really see that it's happening right now, but you will in a second. Let's come in here. Let's go two views horizontal like that. And let's select this view over here, and let's change that to custom view 1. And you still can't tell that it's three-dimensional, but you will in a second. I then want to create some false sort of walls behind this. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to come in and go New and Solid. And I have to decide what I want this to be color-wise. Let's make it like a lightish gray. And the size is going to be exactly the same as my composition. Click on OK. Drag that solid behind this. And then I'm just going to resize it. I'm going to sort of make like a wall, a false wall on a false floor. I'm going to make it also 3D. And then I'm going to select my star shape, and I'm going to bring it out. And then we're going to add in some lights and some shadows and all kinds of different things. I want to make sure that my star is out of there, though. Now let's come in here, and let's actually look at where it is. So I was adjusting the Z. So let's go, and let's make it like 150, negative 150. So negative 150, like that. Okay, so the star is not going into the wall, so that's a good thing. I'm then going to come into my solid right here, and I'm going to go into Material Options, and I'm going to say Accept Shadows and turn that. Well, it's already on, so I don't need to turn it on, but you might have to. And that's good stuff. Now I want to show you how to create a light, and there's a whole bunch of different lights. How you do it, of course, right? New and Light. And I'm going to go over all the different lights that are available to you. There's the spotlight, which I'm guessing you know what that is. But I am going to use just a point light right now. I'm going to let it be white. And if you use different colors for your multiple different lights, the colors are going to automatically blend, which is really cool. And a point light is just a 3D light that's going to radiate from its center without a point of interest. If you remember the camera, well, there's no point of interest with a point light. It's like a little sun floating out in the middle of nowhere. While a spotlight will have a point of interest. And the closer it gets to a layer, the less area is going to be lit up. And it also can be placed between layers to do all kinds of cool effects. So those are some things to play with on your own. And I'm going to come down here and click on Cast Shadows. And then you can define what you want your shadow darkness to be. I'm going to make mine 25%, so that's not so harsh. And shadow diffusion is just going to cover how much feathering there is behind it. I'm just going to leave that at 0. And fall off, this guy right here, is going to refer to where the light starts to disappear. And I'll turn that to smooth. And everything else I think I'm going to leave as is. So let's click on OK. And now you can see we're getting different results here. You can see that everything is starting to look 3D. All right, so cool stuff. You can see down here that there's all sorts of light options, like you can increase the intensity, you can change the color, you can go and change fall off and the radius of the fall off and so forth and so on. And like I said, that's the point in which the light starts to disappear and it starts going into shadows. And you can change the shadow darkness and such also. But I'm going to go and get this light, and I am going to duplicate it. So just select it, Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. You can see it's a little bit brighter now. And I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to just grab this little guy right here and drag it over to the left like that. And that looks pretty good. And then I can go and select the other light, and then maybe we'll move that over to the right a little bit. So just drag it over to the right, and there we go. All right, so it's starting to look more and more 3D the more we go here. If you ever want to change your settings for your light, you can just double click it, and it brings up the settings. And one thing you want to make sure, just to avoid errors, let's select our composition up inside of here. And then I want to go to View and View Options. So View and View Options, which is right here. There we go. And I'm going to set a couple things. I'm going to have camera wireframes only when selected, spotlight wireframes only when selected. Uncheck this and make sure that everything else is checked and click on OK. And everything should be fine now. And let's go and let's change one of these lights into a spotlight. So I just double clicked on it and I'm going to change this into a spotlight. And you can see that it automatically is going to change here. Not much of a difference, however. And you see that the settings are basically the same. One thing you can do, however, is to change the cone angle. You see it's getting smaller. You can change the intensity, of course. As I raise it, you're going to see on the right that it's going to raise. See? Big time raising right there. Let's take it down to like 140. And you can change the feathering, but I'm going to leave that as is. And just like I'm sure you're aware, it's just a conical 3D light with a point of interest. There is the point of interest right in the center there. And as you drag the light, it's going to get larger and smaller in the areas on which it is hitting our canvas or our shapes. So you can play around with that. Another thing you can do here is, let's come down to where it's smooth. If you go and instead select Inverse Square Clamped, your light is going to start off really bright and then fall off. And that, see? And you can see that it falls off there. Let's move it over here a little bit. And let's go and show you the other different lights that are available also. You're also going to have a parallel light. So I'm just going to double click this, change it to parallel, and you can see how it changes. And there you go. All right. Basically, it's a 3D light with a point of interest, and it again can have color, feathering, shadows, and different intensities. Let's take its intensity down to a more manageable level here. Try like 75, see what that looks like. Let's take it to 100. And that lights up the screen pretty good. And you're also going to have ambient lights. And an ambient light just adjusts the light color and the intensity on all of your layers. Don't really use ambient light that much. You see it has sort of like a plasticky type of look. I'm going to use point, and then I am just going to increase the intensity on this. And I raised it up to 150, and I think that looks pretty good. All right, so there's a rundown of lights and how you can use them. Now let's say that we would want to come in here and animate our shapes. We're going to animate our shapes just like we did previously. We're going to go and get ourselves a camera. So let's just go New and Camera. And I'm going to use a 35mm camera. And I'm going to uncheck Lock to Zoom. Actually, everything exactly the way that I have it. Make sure it's 2-node camera. Click on OK. And you can see over here, here is now our camera. I can come in here now and go and animate this shape. So I'm just going to select my star shape. I'm going to set a keyframe at, let's say, 4 seconds, something like that. I like this, and keyframe. And what do I want to keyframe? I think I'm going to rotate on the x-axis. So X rotation. I'm going to go and click the stopwatch. And let's just do a 180 rotation. Like that. Come back here. Set another keyframe, and let's just drop it back down to 0. Well, there we are. And it is going to render. And depending upon the speed of your computer, it's either going to render quickly or slowly. All right, and there you can see it is rotating on your screen. And if you would instead want it to just rotate multiple different times, you can, of course, just go into your X rotation and then how many times you want it to rotate over what period of time. All right. Now what I want to do is I'm actually going to get this shape and I am going to move it over here to the bottom of my composition. And I am going to come in here and duplicate it. So I'm just going to select it and either Command or Control D. And I am going to call this circle-ish. It's because it's kind of a circle. And let's call this star just so we can see the difference. Now I'm going to get my circle-ish. It's going to be a circle type of thing. And let's go and position it. And I want to move it into the upper left-hand corner. So I'm just moving it on the x-axis. And I'm going to move it up here. And I'm just going to show you real quickly how you can work with a whole bunch of different shapes. So let's say that we want to, and the only way this is going to work is if you have your Bezier path unchecked. So if you accidentally check that, then that's going to cause problems. What I want to do is I'll come in here to the circle, close the transform, and instead go to Contents, Polystar 1, and Polystar Path, and just increase the number of points that we have on this. But I'm also going to turn it into a polygon. So you can see now it is a polygon. And then I'm going to increase the points just by dragging. And you can see that now it is, I'm on purpose not making it a circle. And I'm going to leave it basically right there the way that it is. Select the circle, hit R, and for the rotation of this circle, I already have keyframe set at 0. I am going to go out to 4 seconds. And I'm going to say that I want it to rotate, why not 4 times over that period of time. And why don't I do the same thing for the star? So the star, X rotation, and again 4 seconds. And I'm going to take this to 0 and change this to 4. There, they're both going to rotate in exactly the same way. And then we can go and watch them render. All right, so neat stuff. All right, so we got 2 shapes down. Now we're going to get more complicated because we're going to go in here and actually draw 3D cubes as well as 3-dimensional pyramids. To do that, I'm going to come over, create a new composition, and I am going to call this cube. And I'm going to set these for 500 by 500. So 500 by 500. Doesn't really matter any of these other things, and click on OK. Now I'm going to draw a cube, so I need my rectangle tool. Remember, Bezier path off, and I'm going to double click it, and it's going to create a square exactly the same size as what we have here. I'm going to go and get rid of the stroke, however, and I'm going to change my fill is going to be a full color. That is a horrible color. I'm going to select it, and why don't we come in and do like a cyany color? Or why don't we do a green? All right, so we got like a greenish type of color, something like this. There we are, that looks okay. Click on OK. And also I want to go and change the opacity on this. So I'm going to come into Transform and Opacity. And let's set this at 40. So that you can see through the walls of the cube. And I'm going to change the name of this to right. And then to position it, let's go and let's select this guy right here and custom view 1, that's fine. And I want to set it up so that it's on the right side of my cube, and then I'm going to create all the different sides of the cube. So to do this, I am going to change it into a three-dimensional cube. I'm going to come down to position, and I'm going to set my position on the x-axis to be 500. So 500. And then I'm going to set my rotation to be 90 degrees for y. And you can see as I turn it, this is going to represent the right side of my cube. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, what I want to do is I want to duplicate all these. So I'm going to make 5 duplications. So either Command or Control D. Okay, got all those set. And then I'm going to come in and change the names on these. So I'm going to change this to left in no particular order. Change that to top. Change this to bottom, back, and front. All right. And then I'll manipulate them all differently. All right, so I got the right one. And I want to change the position on all of these in different ways. I'm just going to do it one at a time, just so that you can understand what's going on instead of hurrying through it. So, position, X. Set this to 500. This is a 500 by 500 cube. And then I want to set my rotation to 90 degrees. Because this is a cube. All right, you can see that's been positioned. That's all I need to do. Then go on to the left one. They're all 3D, by the way. Otherwise, none of this will work. Transform. And for the left side, I'm going to have to set my X position to 0. See, right now it's currently in the middle. I don't want it in the middle. I wanted it at the far end. You can see that it moved over to the left. And then I need to rotate it again on the y-axis 90 degrees. So they are parallel to each other. You can see the cube is coming together. And that's all I need to do there. Now come into the top, transform. How am I going to do this one? Well, position on Y is going to be 0. So like this, 0. And then I need to rotate it 90 degrees. But this is going to be on the X-axis, like this. As you can see, it's going. So that's X rotation 90. Move on to the next one. This is bottom, contents, or transform, I mean. Position Y, this is going to be 0. Position Y, this is going to be 500. And then rotation X 90 degrees. And there is our bottom. Do the back, transform. Position Z is going to be 250. Don't need to rotate those. There you can see the box is coming together. And then the front, transform. Z, and this is going to be negative 250. Negative 250. Boom. There you go. Got ourselves a perfect cube, perfectly aligned. Now what I want to do is create a null object, bind every single side to the null object, then rotate the null object. How I do that? Right, new, and null object. We're going to select every single one of these. Then go and get the little parent. Whoops, not that one. You can't bind it to itself anyway. There we go. Now everything's bound to the null object. I'm going to come in now and change the null object so that it goes backwards. So I have to make it 3D first though. And I am going to position this on the Z-axis to 500. See, now it's back. Maybe we'll do a rotation on the X rotation. So that you can see the top and the bottom. Let's try like 25. That looks sort of okay. Then I'm going to animate this. So let's come over here and we're going to animate on the Y rotation. So I'm going to go and put a keyframe at 0 and then another keyframe at 4 seconds. And then I'm going to come in here to the Y rotation. Let's say we want to rotate that 4 times. And then we can come in and rotate it 4 times. And you can see there it is. There is our cube rotating. So cool stuff. All right. So now you know how to make a 3D cube. Now I'm going to show you how to make a 3-dimensional pyramid. So again, let's come in, new composition. Let's call this pyramid. 500 by 500, good. And everything else is good. Click on OK. I'm going to come up here to make sure Bezier pass turned off. And I am going to get, let's go and, let's let it be green. Who cares? Let's go get our polygon tool. I'm going to double click with that. I'm going to come down to here, Polystar path 1, points, and it is going to be a pyramid. So let's make this 3. And make sure your stroke is turned off on this, like I have it right there. And what I want this to do is I want this to fill the entire composition. How you do that is if you're on a Mac, you would hold Command Option and then hit F. Or if you're on a PC, you would hold Control and Alt and hit F. Now it completely filled the composition area. I'm going to make 3 duplicates of this. So Control or Command D, 1, 2, 3, because there's 3 sides on my pyramid. But that means the bottom is a square. So I want to make a square. So I'm going to come up here and get the rectangle tool and double click on this. There it is. And let's come in here and see. The opacity is 100%. So I was kind of a goofy guy. I am going to lower the opacity on all of these, every single one of these shapes to 40. So you can either undo and go back and then do it to 1 and then duplicate, or do what I'm doing. I'm just going to change them manually. And as you can see, all of them are 40 now. And all I did was select every single layer and hit the letter T to bring up opacity and lower that to 40. All right, so now one by one, I'm going to come in here and change these. Let's see here. This first one is, yes, that's this square. So just to avoid confusion, I'm going to come in and name this square. And then I need to come in and position all these different parts. So I'm going to go square, and I'm going to also come into this guy right here, change it to triangle. Let's just make it try 1, and try 2, and try 3, and try 4. And there's the different names. All right, so let's start off by putting the square in the right position. So I'm first off going to make it 3D. And then I'm going to have the X rotation be 90. So let's just go 90 like that. And the Y position is going to be 500. So I'm going to select this, go P. Here's the Y position, and change that to 500. So that's going to put it at the bottom. Then what I want to do is put each of the triangles on either of those edges and then change the angle so that they all point towards each other in the center. Okay, so the square is done. Now let's move on to the triangle. I'm going to, first off, make it 3D. Okay, so it's right in the middle of our little square here. The Z position on this, so I'm going to hit P. The Z position on this is going to be 250, like that. Now I'm going to go and reposition all of the triangles and then set the rotations for them. So let's go to triangle 2. First, let's make it 3D. I'm going to go to the Z position and make it negative 250. And now you can see it's in the right place. I'm then going to go into triangle 3. And the positions on this are going to end up being 0 and, whoops, make it 3D, 500. It's a 500 width cube or square at the bottom. And then this will stay at 0. And you can see that it's in the right position, but we need to go and rotate it. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the Y rotation. Actually, it's perfectly fine at 333.3. Just make these 0 and that's 0. And there it's in a good position. And now I'm going to rotate it on the Y axis 90 degrees. And now it's in position. All right, so now we have triangle 4 and then we're done. I'm going to come in, make it a 3D object again. And then we're going to change this to 500 like that. Looks good. And then just rotate it. So let's just select this and R for rotation. And Y rotation, and again, it's going to be 90. There we are. And then I just need to angle these parts of our pyramid together so that everything meets in the middle. So let's just go to our first triangle. We're going to be doing this on the X orientation. So X orientation right here. And we're going to make this, the first part, 30. Whoops. Actually, it messed up because I need to go and put the anchor point in the right place. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have snapping checked right here and the pan behind tool. And then I'm just going to grab this, drag it down here, and it's going to snap to the bottom. And this is my triangle 4. So I am going to be changing its Z orientation. So this guy right here to 330. Let's just come in and type 330. And you can see it's bending forward exactly the way I want it to. And let's just do everything backwards. So let's come to triangle 3 right here. Again, snapping has to be checked. Go and grab this anchor point, put it in the bottom. This time with triangle 3, orientation is going to be 30 for Z. So orientation for Z, 30. There it went in the middle. Come to the next one. Triangle 2. Again, we want to drag the anchor point to the middle. Without snapping, it's not going to go in the right place, so make sure that's turned on. This time we are going to be orienting on the X axis. So change this to 330. This is just the math. I just did it for you. And then we're going to come up here and triangle 1. Again, make sure that you put it in the right place, anchor point wise. And this one's going to be X orientation is going to be 30. And there we go. Now we got everything all in its place. So good stuff. Now what we need to do is rotate it. We're going to do it in pretty much exactly the same way. Come down here, new, and null object, like that. Let's put the null object in the top. Not that it necessarily matters. We are going to make it a 3D null object. Select all the other different layers, and then drag over to make all of them tied into the parent null. I'm then going to go and move the null object. So I'm going to go transform, and I'm going to change my null Z position to 450, like right here. 450, that moves it away from the screen. And then I'm just going to go and animate it once more. So we'll go back to the beginning here. And I'm going to be animating it on the Y rotation. So Y rotation at the beginning, and then we will go 4 seconds again, like this, and we will change it to 4, and it is going to render our 3-dimensional rotating pyramid for us. Position the pyramid as well onto the screen, and you can see they look quite different from each other. What I'd like to do is go and mess around with turning the opacity up on both of them, which I did over here. I opened up the pyramid composition. I'm then going to come in and right click and go new and create a new light. Let's just make it a point light. Perfectly fine. Cast shadows. Okay. There you can see it looks a little bit better. Let's go do the same thing in the cube. Again, select every single thing. Go to click on T and increase opacity to 100. And then let's also come in here and let's create a new light. Doink, doink, new light. Make it be a point also. This is all fine. Click on OK. There we are. Let's take up the intensity of our light. All right, that's kind of cool. Jump back into Comp 1 and play around, see what you get. All right, so that's going to take some time to render. You already saw it because you saw the beginning of the video. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. And like always, please leave your questions and comments down below. Otherwise, till next time.